Hello and welcome to the Middle School Math Summit. I'm your host, Kathy Martin, and I am so excited to bring you our interview with the one and only David Poras. David, thank you so much for being part of this event. I am so excited to chat and talk all things using virtual manipulatives to engage students in deep mathematical exploration and discovery. For those who may not know you, can you share a little bit about yourself and your life as an educator?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be chatting with you and being part of the summit. So thanks for having me in here. I am a middle school math teacher. I've taught middle school math I just finished my 22nd year. It's awesome that you're having a conference devoted to middle school math teachers. So to all you middle school math teachers out there watching, you're
one
phenomenal.
of us.
We made it through a long school year. So I teach outside of Boston, Massachusetts at Weston Middle School, and I am the director of content for Mathagon. I've been working for Mathagon for about 2.5 years, and I'm really excited to talk about some of the ways I've used it in my classroom and how it might be valuable in other math classrooms.
So you teach, you do Mathagon, you're a dad, you got kids. When do you have time for anything for yourself?
I mean, there's not much sleep going on, but like all of us, when you find things that you're excited about and you want to do it, you find the time. And it's certainly been a lot doing Mathagon and teaching. But as I said, I think it's a really exciting tool. It's free for everyone, no sales pitch going on. And so I really enjoy being able to share it with teachers and hear what other teachers are doing. And so you just find the hours when you can, right? Like all of us.
It's so awesome that you are, you're doing what you're doing, because Mathagon is amazing. Anyway, that's a great segue into my first question for you, actually. So for those who may not know, have never heard of Mathagon, can you share a little bit about what it is so we all know what it is? Sure. And, we're on the same page.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to pull up my screen if that's good. So here we are. Can you see Mathagon there?
Yep.
Awesome. So we call ourselves a mathematical playground. It's a space for students to just explore, play, discover, create mathematics. As I said, it's free for everyone. We have courses, tools, activities. One of our most used part of Mathagon is Polypad, which is our open canvas for using virtual manipulatives to explore mathematics. So I will click on the blue button to launch Polypad. You can see it's just an open canvas. I can add polygons to the canvas. They snap together, they rotate. I'll be sharing a number of examples over the course of our talk about how to use all these tiles. But as you can see, there's a number of categories of tiles in each of the sections. So we have tiles in the geometry section and the number section from number tiles and bars and frames and so on. We can dive more into Polypad in a little bit. In addition to Polypad, we have courses. I'm going to leave Polypad. These are interactive courses around a number of mathematical topics that start with a block of content. Students engage with the content and more information appears on the screen as they're going. These at the top are broken up by the topic of mathematics and then the age level of students. We are hard at work at additional courses behind the scenes. So any ones that are in gray, they are under construction. And so they are not behind a paywall or anything. We're just not there yet. So those are our courses. And then under activities, we have a timeline of mathematics that has people and artifacts throughout the ages of mathematics, starting all the way back at the Ashango bone from 20,000 BCE to a number of mathematicians over the course of history that have been important in mathematical development. So you can go through and click and learn about all sorts of mathematicians. I'll go back to activities and show we have, for maybe some middle school students that are still trying to get their multiplication facts under their belt, we have multiplication by heart made in partnership with Dan Finkel over at Math for Love. These are based on like the spaced repetition of multiplication facts. So students can go explore those. One last thing just to share is our puzzle page. And so every December we put out a puzzle calendar. A one-star puzzle is on the easier side. I've used a lot of the one stars with my seventh graders over this past year. And so every puzzle has the question. And then if you have a free account, you can see the solution as well. So super fast overview of Mathagon, a lot to explore. If you go back to the homepage and not my dashboard, but just to mathagon.org, and you go to our tutorial page, it's mathagon.org/learn. And there you can find user guides and tutorials and webinars and explore and learn more at your heart's content.
Wow. That was like lightning fast overview.
Yeah, super fast. Sorry.
So much stuff here. So, okay. If I were, okay, in all honesty, when I was a kid and I was in math class, I didn't really have teachers who like use manipulatives. So then as I, growing up in college, went to teacher school, I didn't really have anyone to show me how to use or manipulative in general. So then as I became a teacher, that was never something I was like really ever comfortable with, because it just wasn't part of like what I did, or, you know what I mean? It was part of my world. And so, but I know the value of manipulatives. I know how important it is for kids. So if you were talking to someone like me who's like brand new, who's like not really comfortable, any suggestions on where we should start? Like, like what, just like a little toe in the water.
I will. Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm going to start with an anecdote first, if that's, because I think that might frame the conversation. So in teaching middle school, I used integer chips for a long time on adding and subtracting integers, right? And you had it was the chip you could turn over, yellow and the red. We've all done it. It's a powerful manipulative. You'd have them on the desk. Students would make the zero pairs. We do it for a day, 2 days. And when I thought most kids were ready to move from the concrete to the abstraction of the rule, we'd brainstorm together and write the rule down in our notebook. And of course, like all of us, I'm sure I would tell my students, anytime you want to use the chips, they're over on the shelf in the little bags. And in my beginning couple of years, I would say that. And even I knew some students needed the chips, they wouldn't go get them. And then I started just leaving the chips on everyone's desk, right, in the Ziploc bags, hoping that those would need them would take them out of the bag. And they never would, right? Because they felt like they weren't as advanced as their peers, the social pressure of middle school. If the kids next to you aren't using the silly manipulatives that you use in third grade, you don't want to be the seventh grader who's using them, right? And then in COVID, the first year of COVID, March or April 2020, we were all at home and we were teaching these, these operations. And so I used the integer chips on Polypad. I just started working on Mathagon. This actually might have been the next school year. I don't know. All the COVID years are a blur, right?
What is time?
I know. At some point during the COVID time, I was teaching this, and not by choice, but because of the virtual nature of things, I was using the integer chips on Polypad. And what I found was that students would continue to use the chips on Polypad until they didn't need them anymore. And there was something maybe about like the safety of the device. They were easier to use. Maybe it wasn't as transparent to their classmates about who was using the chips and who wasn't. And it really was like an eye-opening experience for me that there are sometimes the like individual nature of using a virtual manipulative can allow students to keep working in that space until they individually are ready to abstract the ideas on their own. So I'll share a different example on Polypad, but to me, the like overarching theme of where a virtual tool can add value is allowing students to move from the concrete to the abstract, not when I think they're ready to, or not when their classmates are ready to, but truly like when they are ready to. And that's been really powerful to see. I can share one more.
That was actually going to be a question of mine of, how do we know as teachers when to move, when to not remove, but to go from manipulatives to, but you're saying really allow the kids to decide.
I mean, that's my approach on it. I know not everyone would agree with that, but like the goal of the manipulative is to help them make sense of the underlying mathematics. And so that's different for everyone, right? And so
I guess it's like if you feel you need a calculator, even as an adult, you use the calculator, right?
Yeah, sure. Right. So like if I'm asking, my students the greatest common factor of 30 and 40, that's 140. So I'm using our prime factor circles, which if you've played the game Prime Climb, you might be familiar with these representations. But what's really great about the prime factor circles on Polypad is I can pull them apart. So I can pull out the 2 out of the 30 and see that God, 30
that's so cool.
15. Yeah, I can pull out a 4 here and see that 40 is 10 times 4, and I can put them back together. And so this I couldn't do on paper with students, right? They can't pull the numbers. And I've talked for years that, as we all have, who are watching this, prime factorization is the DNA of a number, right? And like, what does that tell us about a number?
But now, than making factor trees.
Right. And so for, initially when we would just talk, I'd say, okay, what color do they have in common? And they'd say, oh, they all have an orange in common. So that means that 30 is 2 times 15 and 40 is 2 times 20. Yeah, they both have a 2 in common. And this is, a really basic example. They both have a blue in common. So 5 is a common factor, right? What's the biggest amount of colors that we can pull out? Oh, of course, it's an orange and a blue, right? And so they see that 10 is the greatest common factor. Now, a lot of my students, in 6th, 7th grade, when they hear 30, 40, they know pretty quickly that 10 is the greatest common factor, right? So they don't even need this tool. But maybe, I don't know, I'm going to try to make one up here. 230, that's not a great one, but 224 with a lot of common factors, and maybe, I don't know, 400 or something, right? So I don't know what the greatest common factor of that is, right? But I see these on the screen and I'll start
pulling them out.
Twos, right? And like I'm down the road now of making the Venn diagram with the prime factorization, right? And so it seems like the greatest common factor of those is 16. And so I would let my kids use these prime factor circles as much as they wanted, to an extent, right? At some point, I want students to be able to, with smaller numbers, because you can't just pull out the colors, right? And so there's that balance, and each teacher has their own comfort level, I think, of what processes they want students to internalize. But by doing what I'm doing here, they're developing that really deep understanding of what it means to have common factors. And I think I think that's important for kids to develop that understanding on their own.
That's really cool. I didn't even know that existed in the Polypad.
Yeah, a lot of tools out there that are, kind of buried in there. I can show you more down the road about where people after the fact can go, learn more and find all these hidden gems in Polypad.
Can you show, so you said Mathagon is free, which is, can you show, I mean, you kind of showed us the, some of the coolest things in there.
Sure.
Show us some of the most popular things that people
absolutely.
So like if you were new to Polypad, where do people kind of generally go?
Awesome.
Generally use?
I think our polygons are really one of the most popular tools. And there's really nice features that we can do with the polygons. I could take a hexagon and I'll put a bunch of squares around it. I'm just using the C button on my keyboard to make copies of these squares really quickly. You can see under each tile, there's an action bar. And so I could also use the action bar to make a copy of it. And so I've made this shape. I'm going to surround it by some triangles here. Let me just do this quick. And then I have the beginning of a tessellation, right? So I'm going to make this, rotate it around a little bit. You can see as I rotate the shape, I see the number of degrees that I'm rotating on the black handle, which is nice. Yeah. And so here's a shape that I've made. I'll move it over here, hold down the shift key to select a bunch of them. And then, I hit the wrong button, sorry. Try that one more time. Keyboard failure. And then I can grab all of these, copy it, and then I'm off and running in my tessellation. And so a lot of fun discussions around like, in my tessellation, what's the ratio of squares to triangles to hexagons? And I can copy that whole thing and then use this handle to rotate it around. So just as a as like a starting point with students, just take some of the polygons, build and play, create.
I have a very important question.
Yeah, sure.
Can you change the colors?
Of course. Yeah, great question. So at the bottom, there's a color wheel. So
okay.
Yeah, great question. I also want to show you, now that I have this shape built, one of the other really popular features with our polygons is you can see there's a fold net button here. And so this looks like a hexagonal prism without a top. And when I click fold net, it folds up into, I know, that face, that reaction is great. And then I can use this slider to unfold it.
Oh my God, that's cool.
And then I can put a top on it right over here. Let me give myself some room here. And then do this, right? Fold the net. And there it is on the top. And I can spin it around and move it around the canvas. So that's super popular. And, you know, again, I and my students, I have trouble getting a good visual of a net of a 3D object, right? And so I can click on fold even, and like I can take that square off and fold the net. And you can even see inside of it, right? Which is pretty cool.
That is really cool.
As a starting point, I will just do this with students. I'll put on, you know, a bunch of squares on the canvas, and I'll have this on the projector, and I'll say, anyone know what's going to happen if I click fold net? And there's always a few students that will say, yeah, I think it's going to make a cube. And I'll do it, and it'll make a cube, and we can spin it around. And then I unfold it, and I move, you know, the squares over here, and I ask them, you know, what about now? And they say, yeah, that'll fold into a net. And then I stop and I say, go find all the nets of a cube that you can, right? And they are really eagerly opening their devices, and they're building ones like this, and they're seeing if this makes a cube, right? And the like engagement factor is really off the charts right now, because it's easy to use, it's inviting, it works as you expect. And then students are comparing with each other, and the dialogue is just flowing throughout the room, right? Look what I did. And it's so that's a super popular tool. The other one to show, which I've used a lot in middle school, is our probability tools. So I'm going to go to File, where you can save polypads. These are all my saved polypads. I got a whole bunch, but all the way at the bottom, are examples and templates, and that appears even if you don't have an account yet. You can make a free account, but under the probability and data, I'm going to open one that is 100 dice. And, you know, the name doesn't lie. It's 100 dice on the canvas. But what's really nice is you can roll all of them at once. And so I even just like, as a starting with kids, I'll do say, I'm going to roll these. How many sixes do you think I'm going to get? Right. And just that conversation for an intro 7th grader in probability gets the conversation going. And then there's pairs of dice. And then like, it's really easy to collect massive amounts of data. So I could put a table on the canvas. This is the last thing to show. And then I'll turn it back over to you, Kathy, but this is super exciting. So
this is amazing. No, please keep on keeping on.
I'm going to put oh no, sorry. I'm not going to do that. I need to get rid of that one. When I click and drag and I select all the dice, you can see there's the roll button, which I did. But there's also the tabulate button, and that makes a table on the canvas of all the numbers that I just rolled. Ooh. So in that roll, I got, you know, 21 sixes. And so now I'm going to do it again. I'll click roll. And this time I got 21 sixes again, right? That number didn't change. This time, hopefully am I always getting 21 every time? There, 12. I got 12 this time. But in the table, I can change the options of the table. So now it's putting, every time I roll, the values in the table are changing. In the action bar, there's this gear where additional options are shown. I want the table to be a running tally of the numbers. So I'll change it from replace. And now when I roll them, those numbers will increase every time. So now the total went from 12 to 28 of 6.
Okay.
Running tally, right? And then the final thing just on this screen is when I click on the table, you can see there are some options at the bottom for charts. And so I can very easily make a column chart of all the numbers. And so as I roll them, you can see I've rolled a lot more 3s than anything else. but as I keep rolling, the bars are changing. So it's really easy just to, spark that conversation. And so in the time that we've been talking, I've probably rolled this 10 times, maybe. I got 1,000 data points, and it's fun. And if I ever ask my students to take a dice and roll it 1,000 times, they might do 10 and then get bored. But we can get lots of data really quickly here. So that's a powerful tool.
How did you get the dice again? Like you went to...
Yeah, great question. So let me show you two ways. Like one, if you just have a blank polypad, under probability and data, one of the sections is coins, dice, and spinners. So I could just take a dice and put it on the canvas, and I could copy it. And it's not hard to make a lot of copies, but there are some canvases that are pre-made for teachers. And so to answer your question, that's under the File tab at the top. And all the way at the bottom is an Examples and Templates.
Got it.
And that's there for everyone, right? At the top here are all my saved polypads, but I just clicked on the one that said 100 dice, but there's one with 100 pairs of dice, or this is 100 pairs of coins, right? So I could flip all these and say, how many heads did we get, right? What percent of the time was it heads? Anyway, so I should stop there, Kathy.
Why do you save polypads, just out of curiosity?
Great question. So you can save them and then assign them to students. And then, so if there's like a pre-made canvas that you want to use with students and there are some instructions on them. So let me just share an example. Here's one that is a balance scale puzzle that I made for my students, all about me, right? And so this is one that I think this scale has to be a little bit bigger here. That just got, right? So that, was a canvas that I made. It's like an emoji puzzle where like students have to do the work to take things on and off the scale to figure out all the facts about me. This is one where I want students to just take a circle and explore the area of the circle like we've all done, where you take the wedges and rearrange it into a parallelogram. But I wanted them to have a number of different circles to have on the canvas as a starting point. And so just to take that.
You take this and you can share it like in your Google Classroom.
Exactly. Yeah. So here under sharing, there's a link here where you can share it directly to Google Classroom.
Or give them a link
or give them a link. So often I just copy the link, I just copied the link and then I'll post it in Google Classroom or Canvas or any other way that teachers share links with students.
Wow. I feel like I've only scratched 2% of polypad.
Yeah, there's a lot in here. And so let me just, just on that topic, there's a question mark over here on the right, which is our help and support page. And the first thing on the help and tutorial will take you to mathagon.org, /learn. And we have a lot of user guides. We have a bunch of videos on the questions you were just asking. How can you make classes? How can you share polypads?
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
How can you do question builders? And then the other tab at the top is a number of webinars. So over this past school year, we do, monthly free webinars that are kind of a deep dive into specific topics. So as a middle school teacher, if you're teaching a unit on geometry or data science or probability, here's some webinars that are really an hour long, much deeper dive than what the two of us are doing right now. And we have a summer webinar series, depending when you're watching this. We have a couple in July and a couple in August. That'll be an hour long as well.
That is very cool. I was going to say something and it escapes me. I was going to say, the thing that I love about the Mathagon is that it doesn't look babyish, so it's no matter whether you teach middle school, high school, some of these older kids, doesn't look like you're using a baby cartoon. So
that's a good feedback that I haven't heard that specific comment before. It is this is a middle school summit, but there's so many features in there that are really K-5 focused. We have number frames and tiles, and then there's some really at the high school level. We have some graphing features, but it is really a open space that is I think kind of attractive and inviting for students of all ages.
Yeah, because, even though we do teach middle school, sometimes we kind of have to go back to some of those
Yes.
basics to
Yeah.
because, yep,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
tell you. But yeah. Oh my gosh, David, this was amazing. Thank you so much. I think you gave us an incredible just overview of how to use Mathagon. I know in our bonus interview, we are going to take a deeper dive in how to use Mathagon, like specifically to teach algebraic expressions and equations. I know
I can't wait.
teachers asked me about that, and you're willing to show us specifically how to use these, how to use the Mathagon system to teach it. So I'm really excited. If you have not your ticket, you're going to want to click the button right below this video so you can join us in the bonus interview. David, where can we, before we wrap up, where can we learn a little bit more about you and be a part of your world if we want to do that?
Yeah, well, I'm on Twitter at David Poras, DavidPoras. Feel free to shoot me a message there if you have any questions or suggestions about Mathagon. You can go to mathagon.org, and all the way at the bottom are links to all of our social media accounts. We post a lot of good content and ways to learn more. So would love to connect with folks through a variety of social media channels, and maybe at some math conferences in person at some point. How fun would that be?
That would be incredible. Yeah. David, thank you so much again. And we will see everyone in our bonus session. Bye.
Great. Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks, Kathy.